Welcome back to the channel. My name is Quentin and I do stuff, and today I just got back from watching the FNAF movie 2 and I will be doing a little review. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to be starting with a no spoiler section. So in this section of the video, there will be no spoilers for the movie at all. It's just going to be me talking about my overall opinion on the movie. So first of all, the second movie, it's an improvement over the last one. It's a major step up. The jump scares actually did get me a little bit. It was actually a little bit scarier than the first movie. The animatronics, they looked amazing. They were really good, well designed. And let's see what else. The voices, the voice of Freddy, Toy Freddy, Megan Fox, even did good, and Matt Pat. They all did really well for the voices of the toys. And the story was it was alright, I guess. There were some parts of the movie, I'll get into the spoiler section, that were like, okay, what the hell? But overall, the set design, animatronics, it was a pretty good movie. It was pretty scary, scarier than the first one, but still not that scary overall. It had some pretty funny moments and some cameos from some FNAF characters that fans would appreciate, as well as references that fans would appreciate. And even the Wizards, the toys, the entire pizzeria, it looked amazing, And the flashback scenes and the stuff with Mike, Abby, Vanessa, all that, and it was really good. It was really good. The dialogue was an improvement over the last one, because we had Vanessa in the first movie friggin' being like, if you bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you. And it's like, the hell? But in this movie, the dialogue was better. It was overall, I think, a better written movie. But I think the first movie is a little bit more coherent. And I can see why the critics don't like it as much, because the movie is for sure made for people who are fans of the games or know the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. Because if you don't, you're not going to really have that much of an enjoyable experience. But overall, it's not a bad movie at all. It's pretty good. And I don't want to spoil in this section, but there were parts. It definitely, in some parts, I guess, kind of pushed the PG-13 rating a little bit, but it was still a PG-13 movie, so yeah. But overall, I think I'd have to give the movie a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty good movie, and there were some parts of the movie that I was a little iffy on, which I will get into in the spoiler section. But yeah, not much to say here. Me as a person, I won't be able to spoil the movie without saying. I won't be able to say without spoiling. So yeah, let's just get into the spoiler stuff already then. Alright, spoiler time. So in this section, I will be going over what happened and going over spoilers and things I liked and things I didn't like. And I'll just be basically going over, kind of making a little summary of how the movie went. So yeah, let's get into that. So, the movie began. It didn't begin like directly with the Universal logo. It was just a guy, getting into a room, pushing a button, and it was like probably William Afton or something. He was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to start the show?" And start a little FNAF music box, do 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 do. And Universal logo and Blumhouse logo. It was like, "Are you ready to start the show? Count with me now." And it was like, they counted down from 10. And then as soon as the logos were done, the studio logos, it then cut to the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 logo. And then immediately it cut to a flashback scene from 1982 of the FNAF 2 pizzeria in with a bunch of kids. It's all busy and stuff. There's a bunch of kids having a birthday party, playing arcade games and all that, and having a good time. And there's this girl named Charlotte, or Charlie, or whatever you want to call her. She's sitting alone, waiting for the marionette, or the puppet, to come out this trap door. Because in the movie, the puppet comes out of this trap door and directs the toy animatronics during performances. And young Vanessa comes up to this child and was like, the marionette's not going to be out here for a while. He'll still be here. Why don't you come have some cake and all that? So then they go to the so Charlotte goes to the table to have some cake, but then she finds she sees something. She sees William Afton in the Spring Bonnie Yellow Rabbit suit luring a kid to a back room where he's gonna murk him. Why did I do that hand? That was a knife. Okay? And so she sees this and was like, "Oh no, that kid needs help." So she tries to get the attention of some parents, but then they're all like, "Go away, ask your parents," or the adults are talking and stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, of course, because no one ever listens to the child in horror movies, and then they just die. So yeah, no one listened to her. And so then she decides to go on her own. And Vanessa comes up. He's like, Charlotte, don't do it. But she pulls her hand away and goes through the doors. And so she enters the kitchen where William Afton is washing his hands. And she sees the little boy laying on the ground. Now, the little boy isn't dead yet. Okay? He's not dead yet. So she picks up the child and leaves the kitchen. And William Afton grabs a knife, comes out of the kitchen, and starts chasing her down the hallway. And it's very intense, because Yellow Rabbit is basically right behind her. And, chasing after chasing after her in the hallway. But he stops chasing her when she gets it onto the main stage where, in the main area. And no one notices her, so she lets out a scream, and she's crying and all that, and she lets the boy go, and the boy goes to his parents, and then she falls on her knees right on the trap door where the marionette comes out of, and she falls, and it shows her back, and her back has 3 stab marks in her. She has 3 stab marks in her back from William Afton, and then the trap door opens, and she falls down it, and then some ominous music plays, and the marionette or the puppet rises from the trap door, carrying her dead body out of the trap door. And I'm just sitting here in my theater going like, whoa, what the hell? Because, and it's a, very, and you hear the friggin' and just like in the first movie, you can hear so then it cuts to Vanessa waking up from sleeping, and Mike is calling her, and he's like, talking about bad dreams, and are we still good for dinner, and blah, 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 blah. And, she's like, yeah, we can meet for dinner, blah, blah, blah. They're going to eat for dinner. They're going to eat dinner together. So, and then Abby goes to school, and she's telling everyone about the events of the last movie, and no one believes her. And so in cut, she's in class, in robotics class, and there's going to be a science fair. And she's, building this little animatronic. But this teacher is a bitch. He does not believe in Abby's robotic skills at all, and thinks that she should just not participate in it. And so, yeah. And so then, after school, she goes home, and Mike is about to go on this date, I guess, with Vanessa. And then she's like, can I go fix my friends? And Mike's like, no, you can't go. Well, she's like, can I visit my friends? Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy from the first movie. And Mike's like, no, you can't do that. They're broken and all that. You just can't. So then she goes, so he goes to dinner. And, Vanessa and him are talking, and he's like, you having bad dreams about your father? He's like, I don't want to talk about that. And, they're just kind of going over stuff, just talking. And, so then Mike gets home, but Abby is gone. And, turns out that Abby went to the pizzeria from the first movie to go find her friends, but her friends are missing. They're gone from the establishment, and Mike goes there, and she consoles him. Oh, your friends probably moved on. They're probably in heaven. But you know what? Come here. You can go pick something from the prize corner. And so they're going through things. She sees a fast talker, but there's a little Easter egg here. Mike picks up a bootleg Freddy Fazbear plush, and he squeezes it, and you can just hear, ho, 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 ho. My theater laughed in the fact that was in the movie. I thought it was funny. But then she sees the fast talker from the trailers, and so she goes home with that. And so then, from what I remember then, so it cuts to this van pulling up to the FNAF 2 location. And it's this filming crew who are filming a TV show where they explore haunted and abandoned places. And this is where you get the friggin' girl from Young Sheldon as one of the people. And so, they're taking a tour of the place by this guy, a security guard that works there, named Michael. I think I know where that's going, but we'll get into that. So then, they take a tour, and you're like, oh, no way, there's a boat ride? Because there's a boat ride in this pizzeria, which is like, oh my gosh. And so then, and then they get to the social stage, they're like, there's Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, what about Foxy? And then they're like, Foxy was part of a take apart, pull it back together attraction. And Lisa, it's the girl, McKenna Grace's character, she's like, I hear music through my ghost headphone things, I guess. And then eventually the people just split up. Horrible thing to do in a horror movie anyway, but anyway. So she goes to explore the music, and she goes down to this kind of basement part and finds a giant present. That's where the marionette is, but there's a music box playing, because the music box, as you know in the games, if you keep it wound up, it keeps the puppet asleep. It keeps it away. And so in this one, they just had the music box just keep playing right beside the box where the marionette was, to keep Charlie sleeping for her to never get out. Well, Lisa takes the music box and turns it off. And at that moment, I'm like, she's getting murked, she's cooked. And so then, she's putting her head towards the box, and it opens up. And she looks up, and there's a quick jump scare of the puppet, just standing there, and she screams, and then, the puppet goes towards the screen, and then the guy with the camera hears it, and he's like, Lisa! And he's like, I'm coming, where are you? And then Mangle's tentacles, Endo's tentacles, comes up, grabs him by the neck, and pulls him up, and kills him. And then there's this other guy who was exploring the boat ride. And on the boat ride, there's these like little puppet dolls on the walls. And they all jump into the water and go towards him. And that's what kills him in the water, is puppet dolls. And that part, I was a little like, but they couldn't have gotten like another character to do that, but to kill him there, but whatever, doesn't matter. And so then, yeah, and this is one of the parts in the movie where I was like, it's a good idea, but I was like, that caught me off guard. So Michael, the security guard, goes down to the basement where the puppet is, and hears Lisa, grunting and having a fucking seizure. And then she looks up, and she's possessed by the puppet. And I was like, bro, what? The puppet is using her as a puppet. Anyway, so then Lisa chases after him, or puppet person chases after him. He runs out of the pizzeria, and he's like, welcome back, Charlotte. And I was like, damn, okay. So that's okay. And there's a lot to unpack there, because it's like, whoa, what just happened? And there's like, I liked that scene. It set off, and that was actually one of the first jump scares that actually got me, was in that scene. And it wasn't from an animatronic. It was from a light bulb shattering. I don't know why that got me, but it did. But yeah, and that scene was a great scene. And as well, I didn't talk about this, but the opening scene also was really good. It set the tone, and like, it's like, oh, so this is what happened, and this is why the place is closed down. So yeah. The movie then continues with Abby working on her science fair project. Even though she was told to stay away from it, she still wants to do it. And so she's doing that, and then she's also trying to talk to her friends using the fast talker. And it's not working. It's not working out very well. And Mike sees this and hears this. She's like... And so yeah, she's trying to talk to her fast friends. Nothing major's going on there. And then we get to Vanessa. She's in a spinning class bike. It's like a work cardio or whatever. And she gets visions of her father, William Afton. And she's getting PTSD and shit. And she has to run out of the place. And she has this friend. She grabs him, and he grabs her by the shoulder, to be like, hey, yo, what's going on? But like, as her PTSD is going, she thinks it's William. So she pulls a gun out because she's scared as hell. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And she leaves. And it's like, wow, she's very, very messed up. And it also, so then she goes home, and she's going to decide to try and face William Afton in her dreams. Because on their date, Mike was like, why don't you try, lucid dreaming, or try in order to confront your PTSD. And I'm like, okay, this seems interesting. So we might just get a flashback in a dream or something. So she, does all these things to get the dream, and she does. And she's talking to William. She's like, I'm not afraid of you. And he's like, you're my child. You are mine. You will always be mine. And, she's running away from her dad, and he grabs a knife and stuff. And then it, like, transitions to, like, a little flashback where she's running away from her dad and escapes into his into his workshop, where you can see a bunch of animatronic parts, blueprints for animatronics, and she hides behind these two things. And there's a cameo here of a very particular, very specific animatronic. They had freaking Circus Baby in the movie, and I was like, okay. So yeah, Circus Baby was just standing there, her eyes glow and her pupils. She kind of like side eyes Vanessa, and Vanessa's like, and then William grabs her by the arm, and he's like, "You will always be mine." And then Vanessa runs away, and then it does this whole dream thing. Vanessa turns into a cop and has a gun, and shoots William, and he's laughing, and then she wakes up, and it's like, whoa. And so then it goes to the fast talker finally talking to Abby. It's like, Abby, help us, come find me, we need your help. And so she decides to go on her bike and bike to the pizzeria, but not the one from the first movie. Obviously, the FNAF 2 pizzeria. That's what we refer to, the FNAF 2 pizzeria. And that's where she meets Toy Chica, voiced by Megan Fox. And Megan Fox did do a pretty good job. She's like, Abby, you come back to us. She's like, and she even said, Abby was like, how'd you get this new body? And she was like, do you like it? And in my mind, I'm like, did they do that on purpose? But anyway, it then cuts to Vanessa going to Mike's house, and she goes into Abby's room, finds a fast talker, and then Abby comes up. She's like, "Yo, you should see my science fair project." She shows her this little robot Chica that she made, and then she was like, Chica helped me, and Freddy tried to help, but his fingers were too fat. And she was like, wait, what? And then Abby's like, this was in their old house. And then Mike came home because he was getting breakfast. And Vanessa was like, what the hell? So, Vanessa takes Mike outside to talk, and she's like, Abby just told me that she was with Freddy and Chica. And Mike's like, I'm trying to put this behind us. And how am I supposed to put this behind me if everything is coming at me? And there's one thing happening after another. And Vanessa's like, you should just keep an eye on Abby. And then she leaves. So then Vanessa goes to the FNAF 2 pizzeria, and she's, exploring the place. She goes down to the basement and to the box, and she sees that the music box is broken and stuff, and there's no one in the present where the puppet would be. And then Charlotte starts speaking through these megaphone speakers, talking, and she's like, I got someone new to help me. And then possessed Lisa McKenna Grace gets her, and and takes her. And then it cuts to the science fair where Abby went, and she brought her robotic Chica. And the teacher is like, "Oh, I thought you weren't gonna what was I gonna say? I thought you weren't gonna do this." And then she's like, "But I'm proud. I'm proud." He's like, "Wouldn't you be embarrassed?" "No, I'm proud of my robot." And he's like, "Oh, well, let me take it." And then he accidentally drops it. He's like, "Oh no, Butterfingers." I'm like, this guy, bro. And so then Abby runs off, and she gets on her bike, and she bikes to the FNAF 2 pizzeria. She tells Toy Chica, my teacher broke my science fair project. And Chica's like, I'll be your science fair project. You just need to do one thing for me. So she goes, so they go to the security office, and she's like, I just need you to type in this code so that I'm able to leave the perimeter. And in this separate room, the puppet possessing Lisa tied up Vanessa, and it's like, if you don't give me the password right now, I will kill Abby. And so she gives the password, and Chica's like, "You did it, Abby. We're free." And then Abby's like, "How are we gonna get there? I only have my bike." And then we get the taxi with Corey Kenshin again, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh!" They actually have some inside jokes and running bits from the first movie in this one, and I'm like, "All right." So yeah, they had Corey in there. And he's like, "Oh, not you again! You need to get on my cab right now." And then Chica gets in, but it's beakless Chica. She has no beak. And he's like, "Oh my goodness!" And then he's like, "I need to get a new job." And then it cuts to Mike going to Henry Emily, played by Skeet Ulrich, from Scream. And Matthew Lillard and Skeet Ulrich. That's pretty cool. But anyway, and he's talking about Charlotte and his daughter. What really happened at Freddy's. And this is where Mike realizes, and Mike finds out about this other location. And he's like, "Wait a minute. Abby, my sister might be here." And Henry's like, "Before you go, can you bring this music box?" And I'm like, "Okay, that's going to be used later, because you don't just introduce something like that into a movie and not be used later." So, yeah. So then he goes to the pizzeria and gets in. And he has to break in through this little window in the side. And he goes into his closet. And he finds a flashlight. And he flashes it towards the wall, and he gets scared because he sees the Wizards sitting there. He's like, "Oh my gosh." So then he leaves the room, and then it zooms up to Lisa's dead body, not possessed anymore, just sitting there. And in my mind, me and my friend, we were watching this, we were like, "Wait, how did he not notice that?" But anyway. And then it cuts to the science fair, where Abby brought the toy Chica there. And then the teacher's like, "How dare you do this? How dare you bring someone in a costume and pass it as your own?" And then he goes. And he's like, "Oh, I forgot." And then he's like, forgets his keys in his classroom, so he goes. And Toy Chica's like, "I want to see what's going on in his mind." So yeah, he's walking, but he hears a noise in the closet. And so then he looks in, but he sees Toy Chica's eyes light up, and she grabs him through the window on the door. And long story short, not too long, but she murked him. He's dead. He's like, "I want to see what's going on in his mind. Now there's nothing." I'm like, "Dude, oh my god." And then it cuts back to Mike in the pizzeria, and he's like, "Abby? Abby?" He's trying to find Abby, and he hears some banging and some cubbies, and he finds Vanessa tied up in there. She's like, we need to find the security office." And he's like, "How do we have a way to get there?" And so then they take a route using the river, the boat ride. And so they're talking about, there's only one ghost here, the Marionette. And she wants revenge on parents, because that's what caused everything. So then Mike's dumbass falls into the river, and then we see a propeller coming out the water. And I'm like, "That's Balloon Boy. That's Balloon Boy." And so then Vanessa helps Mike get out, and he looks into the river, and it's Balloon Boy staring right back at him. And I was like, "Oh, that little shit." But yeah, then they get to the office, and they're like, "Oh, what are we gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And then Mike's like, "I'll disable." And then Vanessa's like, the Marionette is controlling the toy animatronics wirelessly." And then Mike's like, "You know what? Why don't I disable the connection through so I stay here and can disconnect the animatronics wirelessly, and while you go out," and I forget what she did, but she was going to do something. So then it cuts to Abby winning the science fair, and and Tika's eyes, it sees her scanning the room, and then it says security breach, and it says activating the prototypes, and I'm like, wait, they're getting the Wizards involved now. And then it cuts to the Withered animatronics activating. And so then Mike's, he's trying to get the trackers online, trying to figure out where the toys are. And then we see Balloon Boy right coming up behind the monitor, and he's laughing. Noises start blaring. His eyes start flashing, and Mike's like, ugh. And then straight up just goes up to Balloon Boy, friggin' decapitates him, takes his head off, and throws it. And I laughed when I saw that because it was kind of funny. But then he sees the withering animatronic coming towards the office. He's like, oh no. And then he sees withered Bonnie in the vent. And he's like, so he puts the vent cover back up and he tries to, do that. And he's fending off the withered animatronics by using a spare Freddy mask. And then cuts to Vanessa driving in her car. It cuts back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Mangle is on top of her car. And, and it causes her to crash and all this. And Vanessa's on her way because Mike was like, yo, I found Toy Freddy at this house. And so then, but first, Toy Freddy walked through Fast Fest to get to that house, And he sounds like the Terminator. His voice sounds like the Terminator. It's funny. Nothing really significant happens at Fast Fest. Just these guys who are like, yo, your costume's great. You should go to the concert and to the costume contest. And Freddy's like, I would like to, but first I need to pull the heads off some very bad people. And so then they're like, okay, sure. So yeah, Vanessa crashes. She veers into a ditch. And she's kind of fighting Mangle a little bit, trying not to get taken. And then she restarts her car, And then she comes up to the house where Toy Freddy's about to murk some children. Not children, some adults. And Vanessa pumps the brakes. And it sends Mangle through the window, hitting Toy Freddy. And yeah. And I want to talk about this scene because also it cuts to Toy Bonnie. Matthew Patrick. Anyway, he's going to this house and he's talking with this little girl. And Matt Pat, his voice sounds different. I was expecting it to. It was like really high pitched. He's like, my name is Bonnie. Can we be friends? And then, he's like, I'm going to see if your mom will let us stay up late. But then he's really just going down there to stab her with a screwdriver. And then, meanwhile, at the pizzeria in the office, Mike is, he's on it. He's just about to disable. But then he sees Withered Foxy. And, he's trying to, put the mask on. But we know Withered Foxy. It doesn't work. And so he's about to go. But then he disables all the animatronics. So it disables all the Withers and all the toys. So Foxy doesn't go like. It disables Toy Bonnie before he can stab someone. Disables everyone. So then Mike gets out of the house and gets into his car. And he's talking to Vanessa. And her car, breaks down because he realizes that the marionette and Toy Chica are at his house. So Vanessa is like, I'm on my way there. And Mike's like, wait, I have an idea on how we can help. And then Vanessa's car breaks down. And so she has to rely on someone else to get her to Mike's house. And Mike, he pulls up to the pizzeria from the first movie. And he's trying to talk to the kids. He's like, yo, I need help. Please, Abby needs you. And he gets no response, so he leaves. He pulls up to the house. And then it cuts to Abby and Toy Chica at Mike's house. And Toy Chica is putting an asleep Abby to sleep. She's putting her in the bed. But then Toy Chica just starts tweaking. She's going, electricity sounds are coming out of her. And then Abby's like, what the hell? She looks at Toy Chica. And then her chest cavity starts cracking until it breaks. And turns out the marionette was inside of Toy Chica. And I was like, oh. And it just. And so then Vanessa pulls up to the house. And she's like, Abby? And then Abby. So then Vanessa goes to Abby's room. And Abby was straight up possessed by the puppet. And Abby's trying to kill Vanessa. And then Mike pulls up. And then he's he plays the music box to get Charlotte out of Abby. And I think all is good and all is well until Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy enters. Mango busts through a window, and they're all scared, right? And then this guy gets in the house, and it's the security guy who's a security guard at the office, letting the camera crew in the pizzeria. And turns out it was Michael Afton, and I'm like, whoa, okay. I mean, I thought he was gonna be. I mean, I've kind of figured that. Since he kind of looked evil. He kind of looked very evil. But yeah, so then he's like giving this whole monologue. He's like talking, and Vanessa and him are talking, and like, please, we can live a normal life. And he's like, we are the children of William Afton. We have a purpose. And then Toy Chica comes, and they're all scared because he's like breaks their bones, and then he's like, they're all like, we're gonna die. But then Toy Bonnie gets yanked back through a window. I guess who it is. It's Foxy from the first movie. Stomps on him. And then Toy Freddy gets ripped in half by regular Freddy. Mangle gets torn apart by regular Bonnie. And regular Chica decapitates Toy Chica. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's some freaking Avengers Endgame We Are FNAF moment, but like, it makes sense. And then Michael Afton, he's trying to make a run for it, but then the guy who gave Vanessa a ride, also it's Mike's friend, Jeremiah, his name is, knocks him out. He's like, where do you think you're going, jackass? And then and then the animatronics from the first movie, they start breaking down. They fall over, and I was like, what's happening? Are they dying? Vanessa's like, their batteries are. They're failing. Their systems are failing. They were not made to leave the pizzeria. And so then the ghost kid who possessed Golden Freddy from the first movie was like, we're moving on. And then Abby's like, are you going to heaven? And Golden Freddy kid's like, see you there one day? Not too soon, though. And I'm like, oh, damn. And then the kid talks to Mike, and he's like, I won't be able to hold him anymore, and he'll be stronger than before. And Mike's like, who? And then the kid just disappears. So then, it's resolved, I guess. And then, and then Mike's like, Abby, we gotta go. So they leave. And Vanessa is trying to follow. Mike's like, you need to stay away from us. I don't think I can trust you anymore. Because, like, the entire movie, she's kind of... she knows more than she's letting on. She's kind of gatekeeping stuff. So then they leave. And then also we see in the yard, Michael Afton is missing. Like some Michael Myers shit. So he's gone. And Vanessa's like... But then we see the marionette creeping up behind her. Possesses Vanessa. Oh my god. Credits roll. And guess what song it is? It's been so long since I last have seen my soul lost to this monster, to the man behind the slaughter. Since you've been gone. About that again. And now, before I go, I need to talk about the post-credit scene, because there was a post-credit scene, as well as a little thing at the end of the credits. So, first of all, the post-credit scene, to put it simply, because this video is going on a little long, these guys go to the FNAF 1 pizzeria because it's going to be demolished the next day, so they're trying to find some memorabilia to put in their haunted house. Do you see where I'm going with this? Cool. Then, they go to the back room, and find Springtrap. And then at the end of the credits, Henry sends a message to Mike, and he's like, the marionette's gonna come after you. I was a business partner, William Afton, blah, 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 blah. I still have track of some animatronics are still out there, blah, 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 and message ends abruptly. But yeah, so that was my movie review. And honestly, after my summary, I just want to say that overall, I thought it was pretty good. I was a little iffy on the puppet possessing people, but it makes sense in theory. But it really didn't look that scary, and I just feel like, I can see why critics hate it a little bit because it relies on it's lore heavy, and the first movie is a little more coherent. But overall, it's a major improvement of the last one. But yeah, that's all I got really. So yeah, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.